Hello, how's it going there, everybody? That's good to know. This is my friend Jerome Bell, and I met him at an extras shoot. He's a very interesting guy. We had some nice conversations, and I wanted to speak to him about this. So, this is all of his perspective on the movement that is happening at the moment. So, enjoy.
Welcome, Jerome. Thanks for doing this, man.
Absolutely, my pleasure. My pleasure. It's always good to talk about these things. So, my thoughts on BLM is first, you got to separate. There is a formal organization, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and then there's the social movement of BLM apart from that. So that BLM started 2013, 2014, thereabouts. That's when it actually started. So there's basically the BLM organization, the BLM social movement prior to George Floyd's murder, and then I would say the BLM immediately after the George Floyd murder. And then I would say what BLM is right now. I would say post riots and such. So there's some complexity there. So the BLM organization, I don't support at all. They are essentially a anti-nuclear family organization, and that does not serve the interests of the Black community. So just straight up, I understand that the BLM the social BLM movement pre George Floyd murder. I understand the spirit of it, but I haven't supported it. So the spirit of it is saying there's a targeted destruction of Black lives. So this is, and so the first criticism of that typically is saying, well, what about Black on Black killing? And so again, when you have in the Black community, Blacks killing Black, it's not a targeted killing because they're Black. In every community, people kill where they live. So if you have a predominantly Italian neighborhood, Irish neighborhood, whatever, if there's deaths there, more than likely it's from within the community. Therefore, it's with folks within the community killing those in the community. So I understand the distinction there, and I understand that BLM is intended to be is a targeted movement towards a targeted attack. That in terms of the sentiment, and so I understand that. It's similar to, like, I would say, the pro-life movement. When people say, well, oh, if you're pro-life, then that means you're against war, right? Well, no. It is pro-life is intended as a targeted movement against a targeted attack against unborn human lives. So it's intended to be taken in that context. So I understand the nuance there. But at the end of the day, and this would be pre-George Floyd, I didn't support BLM's social movement because I believe that those issues can be easily mitigated within the Black community. So in other words, let's take for granted that most police officers were targeting Blacks. The solution is don't get caught. So don't break the law. That's what that means. And if you are unfairly, say, pulled over and you were following the law, keep your hands on the steering wheel. No sudden movements. Be compliant, right? So this is something Blacks have known for a while. I would say that hopefully the general public knows for a while, is that you need to de-escalate the situation even if the police officer doesn't. And pre-George Floyd, when we had all these, white cop killing a Black person, almost with very few exception, there was non-compliance. And this isn't new. This has always been the protocol within Black culture, is that you gotta take responsibility for your own life. You can't trust the government. The government is actually a tool used against you. And so this isn't anything new, but my issue with BLM, the social movement, is that this movement was pretending like this is a new issue for Black people, whereas we already knew how to deal with that situation, and we did by and large. So, I didn't support BLM, the social movement, prior to George Floyd. What's interesting about the George Floyd case is that, and I don't know if you've seen the latest body cam footage for George Floyd specifically. You can find on YouTube easily, but He wasn't compliant. That's a fact. You can see it on the video, but he wasn't malicious. And I'll just leave that for you to see the video for yourself and you can make your own decision. So he was actually extremely anxious the entire time in the video. And so as a police officer, you know, it's your job to de-escalate. Granted, they were in control of the situation the entire time, so it's irrelevant to his murder. But nonetheless, if you apply that same logic I just said about, hey, comply, that's actually, in the case of George Floyd, at the time of COVID, that was kind of almost the heart of the problem. And that produced an interesting paradox, is because what happened to George Floyd was seen not only from through a racial dynamic, but it was seen as the government on the necks of the citizens, which is something that was being felt widely. So it was symbolic. And so it was, so this whole idea of saying, well, hey, just comply so that you can get through. But if you take it from that more general context, that was almost the heart of the problem during this pandemic, is that business owners were complying and their businesses and their lives were being destroyed for it. So here it is that the conventional wisdom was actually not working in the more general sense. And that's why I think, you know, his murder did spark this social unrest, which went, in my opinion, far beyond racial, even if the media doesn't necessarily portray it that way. I don't support the BLM immediately after George Floyd's murder because it just simply wasn't constructive.
A lot of destruction of property.
Yeah. Well, so then let's separate the peaceful protesters from the rioters, who were basically violent protesters, and distinguish that from the looters. So we got three categories of people, right? And so looters, they're looting. They're just taking advantage of the chaotic situation. Rioters and peaceful protests are technically both protesting. I personally don't believe in violent protests, i.e. rioting. However, I cannot deny that if they hadn't burned down the police station, then we wouldn't have gotten an arrest in 48 hours. So the day after they burned down the police station, what was the city where, was it Minneapolis? What was the exact city?
Yeah.
If they hadn't burned down the police station, I don't think that we would have gotten an arrest in 48 hours. In fact, if you recall the report, he said typically it's 5 months between like accusation and when a police officer would get arrested. And they made it sound like they were doing us a favor by doing it in record time in 48 hours. And just the disconnect between the government and the people, you know? Mm-hmm. So I can't deny that it was actually effective, but we can't have that as business as usual, in my opinion. So even if you take the peaceful BLM protesters, my opinion is it's just not effective. If you've gotten to the point where you have to convince people that your life matters, you got bigger fish to fry. Mm. Like, it's just, no one's going to value your life simply because you verbally say so. For right or wrong. So, and now what BLM is now, it's gotten mixed in with Antifa. It's been, I think, co-opted by basically non-whites who have various agendas. Antifa being one of them. And
you mean non-blacks?
Yeah. So
so just people that are
BLM as a shield.
Opportunistic people.
Absolutely. I just believe that the BLM is really just it's just a wrong approach fundamentally since 2013, 14. That's my opinion. I think that it's an extension of the civil rights movements and the fundamental problem with the civil rights movement, which was it was based upon the lie that the key to success is within white society. And so if you can't voluntarily enter into white society, you have to impose yourself upon white society and force your way in, i.e. the law, anti-discrimination laws and such within the private sector. And I think that it's not even, but what was the real damaging thing for Black people is that we believe the lie that the key to success is within white society. That was the problem. it's disrespectful to impose yourself on another people. But more, the damaging effect to blacks was that it became a mainstream idea, which it wasn't before, but it became mainstream within black society that the key to success is within what is walled behind white society. And that makes no sense whatsoever. And additionally, even if that was true, it doesn't make sense to say that the very same people that you're claiming to oppress you so bad, why are you trying to live amongst them? It would be like saying, hey, let's integrate right now with radical Islam, radical violent Islam. Let's just put us all together, almost like it's a reality show. That's going to be a disaster.
It is a reality show. This is fucking existence right now.
Well, yeah.
That's how I feel.
You know, and so the very premise of the idea of saying, how is on the one hand, you're saying these people are oppressing you so bad, and yet you want to live amongst them. That in of itself doesn't make sense, much less the lie that the key to success is within white society. And so the question is that why did it become mainstream within black society? And I believe what it boiled down to is fear of authority. And so the problem that I see is that your everyday man, your everyday black man, husbands and fathers, were intimidated by authority figures. And so the reason why you're intimidated by authority figure is you have to go back to the first authority figure that you experienced in your life, and that's your parents.
All right. Hope you all got something of value out of that conversation, out of Jerome's perspective. And my 2 cents here is that what I see is a lot of white people shaming other white people about being racist and putting Black Lives Matter signs up on their doors, in their windows, on their front lawns. And I invite any white people to just have a conversation with a black person about this movement, because I take it you'll be surprised about their point of view, and not all of them are in support of this movement. And there's a lot of stuff underneath it and behind it, which we only really covered the tip of the iceberg with in this interview. And so that's what it is. That's what it was. Hope you got something out of it. And I may be releasing more stuff with Jerome too around this or some other area of life. He's an interesting guy to talk about. He's very knowledgeable about a lot of other stuff too, and he mentioned parenting at the end there. He's got a video about forgiving your mother. It's very interesting. So like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Okay, I'm trying to be a YouTuber, and it helps. And I love you all. Thank you for watching. If you did, whatever color you are, we're all human beings. We're all part of the human race. So just keep that in mind. Take care. Peace.